When we were young, 2024, all album plays, 57 records from front to back, and we here at the Emo Social Club, well, we got to review all of them.
Yeah, legally we do, actually.
We have been told that legally we have to. And on this episode, we are talking about Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer. And before we get into our opinions and our thoughts on this record, Lizzie, tell us a little bit about Dashboard and tell us a little bit about Dusk and Summer.
So this was the fourth album from Dashboard Confessional. This was released on Vagrant Records on June 27th, 2006. This was made available, though, for real fans a day early on AOL. This charted number 2 on the Billboard 200, and it sold 134,000 copies the first week. Vindicator was in Spider-Man 2. The singles, though, other than Vindicated from this, were Don't Wait, Rooftops and Invitations, and Stolen. Chris Carrabba wanted to explore like the space of sound and music and like the length with this album. So he used a lot of different techniques and kind of actually explored a little bit more with who he wanted to record with and how he wanted to record as well. So this was kind of his experimental album.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I would never think of because every time I hear about Dashboard, I'm like, oh, it's acoustic. There's not much more. I mean, it's an ain't broke, don't fix it thing. There's not much more here other than acoustic, but there is actually more here.
It was very strange to me looking this record up on Spotify because there were two versions. There's one that was 06 and there's one that was 07. And I wonder if it's because Vindicated was not originally on this. It was, however, on it because there were two tracks that were available if you had the physical CD and you rewound it past the first track. You could hold, like, skip back or rewind, and you could actually hear two more tracks than were what was on the track listing. And Vindicated was one of those songs. And I think just with the success of the song on the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, that they just did like another release of this where they're like, yeah, don't do all that. Just put out put it out as part of the track listing. I mean, Vindicated being like one of your lead singles and like a great song.
Yeah.
Like, why would you not put that like on the track listing in the first place? Well, we're going to get into our thoughts and our opinions on this record. But before we do, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are talking about every record and we're almost there. It's almost October. The festival's coming up. So we've probably talked about one of your favorite records and we are going to talk about the rest of them. So if you are subscribed, you'll know when the episodes come out. You will know what our opinions of them are and you will be able to agree with us because our opinions are correct. If you want to hear more jokes, more goofs, more gaffes, if you want to hear more of our opinions on these records, we do have extended episodes here on the YouTube if you are a member, and over on our Patreon, Emo Social Club, over on Patreon as well. Here are my thoughts on Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer. Dashboard was always an emo band that I was never super into because it was, as we said, very much like an acoustic band. Like, you know, it was the side of emo that was more like hard on your sleeve, talking about girls and generally more for like a female audience. I think that was like one of the things that was very pushed about them at the beginning was that this is for the girls.
Girly pops.
And as I would say, kind of Hollister core. Very much like the polo shirts and there was a certain audience that went for Dashboard that I was not a part of. I was more of like the darker side of things. I was more into post-hardcore, breakdown, screaming. Like that was more the emo that I gravitated towards. And at the time, never the two should meet in the middle. But when Vindicated came out and Hands Down came out, I was like, no, this band actually has some really good songs. They're a full band. There's a band around him. It is not just acoustic music. There is still that singer-songwriter side of Chris Carrabba, but it is by no means just like a guy with a guitar singing songs about girls. There's a lot more here. And so that's when I took a listen, but I never really wanted to go visit this record because it looked so Hollister core. You look at the cover of this record and you're like, this looks like it's sold at a Hollister. I did hear Stolen in an episode of Scrubs. And I was like, oh, wait, this song is great. I love this song. So I listened to Stolen a lot. It was in my repertoire of like other Dashboard songs like Hands Down and Vindicated that I would just listen to here and there, but I'm never really listening to a full Dashboard record basically. So yeah, this was my first time listening to this record in full. I loved this record.
Okay.
I loved it.
So you are a girly pop.
I straight up loved this record. I'm like, holy fuck, I really like this record. I was so shocked. I was so taken aback. I put it on for repeat listens and I was like, how the fuck is this record so good? There are a lot of darker songs on this than I thought. I was like, how are you going to write a song about summer and be like, I'm really not happy and I'm sad? It's like, what do you mean? You're on the beach. This is a record about California. And you're like, it's not all sunshine. It's
Even
like,
baddies get saddies though while you're on the beach.
Baddies getting saddies. Chris Carabbi's getting baddies with saddies.
Oh, Chris Carabbi's?
I also think this is like, out of the records we've been doing, this is one of the best sounding records we've listened to. Obviously, this is a massive hit. Like,
oh yeah, I mean,
Dashboard
number 2
at this time was already doing so much. They were making a lot of money for Vagrant Records. And so I think there was definitely a lot of budget put into this. And like you mentioned, there was a lot of experimentation and a lot of that. It sounds really good. There was a full band, full sounding, like wide and like massive sounding record. So I got to give props to that. Like there's a lot of sounds on here that I'm like, oh, this is so pleasing to the ear. Like I can listen to this on repeat and it's just very, very nice to listen to. Not always the case with a lot of these records. Not always the way that some of these records come out. And of course, I think we all know it. Chris Carabba's voice is insane. Like he's an amazing singer. He hits notes that I don't think a lot of people can hit. What a voice. What a talent. I really liked it. And honestly, I don't know, man. I don't know. I felt weird liking this record so much. And when we get into your thoughts, we'll see what happens. My top tracks from Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer. I've got to put Stolen on here. This was the song, the biggest song beyond Vindicated that I knew coming into this record. I know it's a single, but I'm picking it. I don't need to tell anybody how good Vindicated is. You all have seen Spider-Man 2. So this song, I'm just going to say it still stands out to me. It's still something that I've come back to. Every time I've ever heard this song, it gets stuck in my head for like 3 days minimum. It's a very easy pop song. It's very much just like a love song about like being in love and like all that experience. What Dashboard does so well is this theatrical and melancholy feeling behind it, where it's like, even in a song where he is like, I am so in love and everything is great, it still feels like I can't handle it and something bad here is happening. I don't know what it is, but like it does fit in with this like radio rock, like kind of like a late 90s, early 2000s radio rock sound, but also fits on Warped Tour. Like it really bridges this gap between like the two scenes of like major like stadium rock and like being in a parking lot in the summertime, listening to somebody with a guitar just saying, you know, the same things at you. I really love Stolen. It's one of my favorite songs on this record. Reason to Believe, one of the other singles.
Okay.
But this one, I was like immediately like, this riff is so Paramore Brand New Eyes to me. Did not think I was going to hear that on this record. Like that sort of ignorance type riff on this. And he has sort of like a more gruff voice in this. This is where I was like taken aback and I was like, I did not expect to hear something like this on this record. I loved it. I thought it was so cool. I thought the way that like this sort of shaping the opposite of what my expectations were, listening to this whole thing just really like stood out to me, really made it like a fun listen and like being like one of the top, you know, the first 3 tracks you hear on this, like, oh shit, like this is not going to be the record I thought it was. He just is a little bit more darker on this one. It's a little bit more edgy than, you know, what I would expect from Dashboard. So I recommend it as a song to listen to off this one. My third track is Heaven Here, the last track.
Really?
This song bangs, dude. It's a very interesting closer because there's like an acoustic one that happens right before this track. There's like a drum like sort of loop that goes through it. It's very much that like, as we've said, experimental final track. There's a lot more that's going on that's not like what you hear on the rest of it. The lyrics on this one feel like Hands Down to me. Like Hands Down is lyrics of like one moment in time, like describing this moment in time and like the feeling of that romance and that feeling of like young love and whatever that moment felt like to you. And it's like, it's not perfect and it's not the best and it may not last and it may only be this like fleeting moment. And I think that's like one of the reasons why Hands Down has stood the test of time. This has that same feeling to me. That has that same vibe to me where you're like listening to it and it's like, this is not a moment that will last. This is a moment that is happening right now. The last line of it, heaven is here and tonight we are the only ones who feel it, being the end of the song. And then it just cuts right off. Dude, imagine singing that at When We Were Young. Imagine the whole crowd, hands up in the air, screaming that back as it's at the top of Chris's lungs, and then everything just cuts out. I'm like, that's Whew, that's chills,
Sheesh,
dude.
you're already
That's
thinking about
chills,
it?
dude. What he does on that song to me is like very clearly in that experimentation that you're mentioning. He's like, if I nail this, I nail it. And I think it nails it. I think it does. Like everything comes together very well. It's a very different song than what you would expect from Dashboard. But when you get to that ending and it like really just picks up and it's like everything out there, everything to the end of it. And then everything stops and you're like, you did it. You did it. You nailed it. There's a lot of songs on here I really liked. I wanted to pick that one because that one just like, it really stuck out to me as like, wow, you fucking nailed it with that one.
Like you did it.
You really killed it with that one, man. My least favorite track from Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer. I think that, yeah, I got none. Nothing stood out to me as like a really bad track. There are a lot of acoustics things that we're very used to from Dashboard. I think that because this is a little bit more produced, this is obviously Dashboard coming off of 3 other records, having a lot of attention on him. The acoustic ones on here don't feel draggy to me. They don't feel like they aren't doing something that the other songs are doing. Maybe it's the tempo, maybe it's the sounds that are going into it, but they don't feel like it's a down moment in the record. And obviously it is what Dashboard does the best. So I don't think that he's by this point pulling anything away. It's like a lot of these other bands are doing like one acoustic song because they're like, oh, let's throw something different on the record, or we feel like this song sounds better this way. But this is like where his bread and butter is. So I had no issue with any of those. I've gone back a few listens to try to see if anything stood out. So Long being like more of like the real ballad on there.
Yeah.
Having the Counting Crows, Adam Duritz feature, like really like just caught my attention. And it just very much feels like that like early 2000s like radio rock stuff that I was also super into at the time because like whatever, you know, it's radio rock.
Well,
it's
you were
popular.
listening
It's
to the
everywhere.
radio and it was there.
I have no notes on this record. Very shocked by it.
Wow.
No notes.
I'm really shocked by that too. I thought you were going to not like hate it, but I thought you were going to be a little bit more like 50-50 or
more
like
skeptical.
yeah.
No, I don't know what it is, man. Maybe it's time and place. I don't know what it is. Maybe if we listened to this in January, maybe I would have felt differently. You know, I am fully invested in this record. I don't know what it is, but goddamn. Maybe it's just the production. Maybe it's like, no, we can't let this record fail. And it's like, it didn't.
And they just like went all in. You're like, yep, this sounds
bigger
good.
budget, better results, Papa John's.
Jesus Christ. Here are my thoughts about Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer. I don't really know when I found out about Dashboard Confessional. I feel like they just always been there in my mind, floating in the ether. That's all I can say. Because I really try to sit down and think back like, oh, who like showed me Dashboard? When did I first hear any of these songs? I can tell you this was not really on rotation heavily for me and my friends in high school. We listened to like the singles if they came on, like Vindicated, Hands Down. That was really it. We never really listened to more of it. And I never listened to more of it either, just because I don't like a lot of slower acoustic sounding music to begin with. It makes me kind of eepy. So I never really listened to it or went out of my way to listen to more Dashboard Confessional. I've seen them a lot of times, a lot of times. But listening to this album, I was kind of really shocked by how boisterous it is. And it had me stopping a few points because this is the early 2000s. There is a lot of that radio mom rock sound to it, but it has that alt emo tinge where I was hard pressed to say this is almost like mom rock. There's some songs that if you have it on a little like on a line,
yeah,
and you're like, this one's a little bit more mom rock. This one's a little bit more emo. This one's in the middle. That's kind of how I went with some of these. And it wasn't really bad. Yeah. I had a good time listening to it. It's not something I feel I would always seek out just because still there are a lot of songs on here that are really slow to me. And it's just not something that I personally like to listen to. I like to listen to a lot of like really energetic, upbeat stuff a lot of the time. But if it's there and it's being played, I'm not going to be mad about it.
By surprise, huh?
Yeah. I was shocked. I like genuinely, I was like, oh, like this is pretty good.
I was like, what's this conversation going to go like? I apparently love Dashboard Confessional now. And Lizzie's going to just feel the exact same way she's always felt about this type of stuff. It's like, no, it's early radio rock. It's mom shit. I don't know, man. I don't know. Record's good. I mean, for the time, I think if it popped off, if I was able to be more aware of what was going on in my surroundings, I feel like this would have been like a really fun. We really let
cycle.
our preconceived notions about Dashboard send us away from this record. And now we get to sit here and go, damn. Wait, damn. I apologize, Chris. I didn't know your game.
I didn't know your game too strong.
Yeah. You're Dashboard too confessional. You're Dusk too summer. You're bitch too bad. They'll kill you, Chris.
Here are my top tracks from Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer. Reason to Believe.
Yep.
That was one. This was when I'm like, oh, wait, what's going on here?
Yep.
It's more upbeat. It's more active. There's a lot of direct emotion being translated into the song too, which I really liked. And obviously it's an emo, man, so duh, but not everyone does it really well. And Chris Krabbe does it very fantastic. He doesn't scream also in the song and majority of the album like we're used to for emo during these days, but he has really good communication with the audience in his lyricism to make you understand the emotions and feelings he's going through.
Yep.
And I think that makes it significantly more attainable. Obviously, he's number 2 on the Billboard 200 charts that even the normies could listen to it and be fine with it.
Yeah.
And it makes it just for everybody. My second is Rooftops and Invitations. This is more of like a pop punk song. This is like the pop punk song of this album. It's really fun. It's bouncy. And I think if you wanted to introduce somebody into pop punk, like your normie friend who's like, I really like Dashboard Confessional. And you said, oh, you like this. What about this song? Yeah. What about this other band over here?
Check out these guys.
Look at these guys over here. You're going to like them. I think that that's a really good intro song to get people into the gateway of pop punk. Mm. And then my last one would be Slow Decay because of that bass line, the crispy, dirty bass line.
I thought that too for you, yeah. And you don't think of bass in Dashboard very much.
That's why I was shocked. I listened to it and I was not, because this was an album that I put on and I had to re-listen to a couple of times because I'd put it on and it would just be in the background, and that's not a bad thing. It's music that's playing and I enjoy it enough that I don't really need to go and change it. But I went back and re-listened to it. I'm like, ooh, that bass line is so, It's a sheesh bass line. Sheesh. This is where we hear more of those like original emo elements too come into the fold with this song. It's really dramatic and I love that. And it adds another layer like through the song with it, and some of the backing vocals add to that theater with it.
A lot of theater on this.
Yeah. Here are my least favorite songs from Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer. I had one. I'm sorry.
Nope. I mean, you're wrong, but go ahead.
Wow. So long, so long.
I knew you were going to say that.
It felt really repetitive. It was boring to me. It was just, I wanted to take a nap. Brian said I can't use EP more than once.
That's correct. You cannot. You had your one. Don't fucking waste it in the early parts.
But it's slow. It just doesn't fit my taste. It's not something I would like ever go back to. It's fine for other people, not for me.
You're not going to enjoy the Counting Crows Adam Duritz feature either.
If I was cognitively listening to this album, this would be one that I would just skip past.
I think it's the only one on the record that like doesn't make sense in our context of like what we're generally go for, but I liked it. I was fine with it. It's like you have to really do something egregious to make me go, oh, I didn't like this song.
Yeah, this one I like went back and I got annoyed while listening to it because it was like so long, so long. I'm like, so long, farewell.
So long, so long. I loved it. I liked it. I like it. Singing it right now, I'm like, I liked it. Those are our thoughts on Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer, but we are not the only ones who had thoughts about this record. We have gone to Amazon. We have gone to critics who have reviewed this record, and we're going to read you some of those thoughts so that we have, a well-rounded view of Dusk and Summer by Dashboard Confessional. This first one is from G. McLeod, 4-star review. I can't believe how much I like this album. You can figure out why I picked this review.
Oh, all right.
I know that many people who have been fans of DC for many years think that this album is a bit too much of a departure for their tastes. I understand that. So because this album is what made me a fan, I suppose this review doesn't have much cred. However, for all the opinion of a new fan is worth, I think this album is fantastic. I personally found most of DC's earlier work a little bland for my taste. When I first heard Vindicated on the radio, I couldn't believe it was a DC song. That song was in my head nonstop. So I figured, what the hey, let's get the whole CD. Holy guacamole, people. I can't believe how much I like this album.
Holy guacamole and the whole avocado?
Overall, I think what makes this album memorable is also what makes it a work of art. It perfectly captures the essence of Summer's End in the music, lyrics, and CeCe's vocal stylings. Softly fading sun that throws gold on the grass, warm days yielding to nights tinged with chill, and romances that must, like the summer heat itself, inevitably end. I picked that review because that is exactly what I said in fewer words. This might just be that record that does it for people. Whatever it is about the songs on this one, the lyrics on this one, the sound of this one is doing for a lot of people. Maybe for a lot of dudes who are like, I'm not interested in that acoustic crap that's for the girls. There's too many girls out there listening to this.
This is for the girlies,
acoustic guy, like,
but derogatory.
Guy at the party with his acoustic guitar. I think just a lot of people probably share that same experience where it's like, this is the record that got them into Dashboard Confessional as a full album versus like singles and all that. Hands Down is a massive song.
Yeah.
Vindicated is a massive song, but maybe you're not really exploring. And for this one, people explored. People had to go. Check it out. This review is by Don P. 5 stars, the right album at the right time. Once in a while, during a rare period of emotional intensity in your life, an album emerges that perfectly articulates what you're feeling. This is that album for me. It's perfect, and I will remember it forever. So yeah, it's basically all the same reviews. That's from 2010, though. The other one was from 2007. So I tried to find negative reviews. Try to always find a well-balanced meal, Have your broccoli with your ice cream. This review is by Brandon Hensley, 3 stars, from August 11th, 2006. The review is titled, Call Me If You Try to Wake Her Up.
Oh, okay.
Want to know something, Christopher Caraba? As hard as I've tried not to, and believe you me, I've tried. And on the ever dynamic scale of karmic victories, the fact that the absolutely nauseating pseudo-emo revolution that you tried to spearhead failed to make it off the launching pad lands just behind that goofy trollop Tanya Roberts being so cash-strapped that she's endorsing in national radio spots that trashy D-list Las Vegas resort Tahiti Village, or as my best friend Sherry calls it, Syphilis Central.
What?
I really, really like you. Now, I'm going to pause there in the review. Didn't understand a single word in that sentence. I got nothing. I don't know who any of the people are. I do like the phrase ever dynamic scale of karmic victories.
That's great.
Everything
else, I don't know what you're talking about, homie. I feel like you have beef with other people.
I don't even know your friend Sherry. And I think you're a talented writer. And I think Carve Your Heart Out Yourself will stand rightfully among this decade's great love songs. But baby, listen up. Down and sideways. You are not Michael Stipe. And you ain't never gonna be. And the harder you try to be, the dimmer you look. Anyhow, it figures somehow, God help me, that I would kind of like your new album, Dusk and Summer. In spite of the fact that far too much of it, particularly its dead into second half, plays like an angst-heavy, pathos-free, automatic for the people knockoff. Take it tune by tune, Chris, and the comparisons become downright uncanny. Slow Decay feels like Drive Light. The title track comes off as a ham-handed Everybody Hurts, and no fewer than 3 of the record's 10 songs, most notably Heaven Here, try to be less homosexual, less indelibly evocative, and monumentally less riveting stand-ins for night swimming. But I don't know, Chris. What can I tell you? Wholly in spite of the fact that you have a 1.5 octave voice and don't always realize it, I'm the biggest sucker ever for your baby-faced melodramatics. One can't help but wonder what you'll be writing about when you're 30 years old. However, one also can't help but admire the obvious headway you're making. The longer you've been at it, the less progressively cutesy your songwriting has gotten. You're learning, praise be, about restraint. And that's one even my beloved Ms. Emos grapples with now and again. So take heart. And you shrewdly continue to develop your freaky knack for crafting a knockout song. By my estimation, Dusk has 2. The guitar-driven stunner Rooftops and Invitations, I'll be generous, Chris, and show its similarities to the Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight, The Door. And a piano-driven, completely inspired duet with Counting Crows' Adam Duritz, one who certainly knows from angsty balladry, called So Long, So Long. It's achingly simple, heartbreakingly real masterstroke. I do not like that review.
There's a lot going on in that review. First of all, who's Michael Stipe?
Oh boy. Michael Stipe is REM.
Oh.
And I mean, I don't know a lot of REM. Like, that was not a band that I got super into. But this guy is so painfully British that this review is null and void. and I don't care for it. I like that he's at least balanced. I don't like that he's writing directly to Chris Carrabba as though he's reading an Amazon review. But maybe now he'll see it.
Maybe he'll see it, homie.
Brandon, I've got you. I've got your back. I'm helping you out here. Disagree. There's more than 2 good songs on it. I don't think that Chris Carrabba is trying to be Michael Stipe or REM at all.
No,
but then
absolutely
again,
not.
You know, we talk a lot about bands here who get their influences and wear them on their sleeves and just kind of do similar things to where their influences came from. And I think in this case, if Chris Carrabba is doing more REM type stuff, that's not a band we hear a lot of other people throwing out as their influence on their new music. So, you know, all the power to Chris for taking a new influence that kids like us can hear for the first time and go, hey, that's rad. I like that a lot.
So I found none that were actually like stunners.
Like positive or no?
So everything was pretty middle of the road. There was a couple that were like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. So I didn't really like look at those.
Yeah.
But there wasn't anything that said this is 100% the best thing I've ever heard either. So we could take it or leave it. The first one is from the AV Club from July 12th, 2006 by Noel Murray, C-. A lot of Dashboard Confessionals fans discovered Chris Carrabba's songs during the time when radio was dominated by grinding nu metal boy bands and gangsta rap. They spelt it with the A.
You have to, but it never sounds good reading it out loud.
Yeah. By contrast, Carrabba's acoustic angst-filled ballads sounded honest and direct, especially to a generation apparently unaware that heartbroken guys with guitars are as common as coffee shops. Now, 3 years after trying out a bigger rock sound on A Mark, A Mission, A Brand, A Scar, and 2 years after landing the diamond hard smash hit Vindicated on the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, Dashboard Confessional is trying to hold onto the young adult audience as it migrates into graduate school or the job market. The result is Dusk and Summer, an album of dryly mature love songs with an arena-ready sheen that contains echoes of Coldplay and, oddly enough, Journey. If Dashboard Confessional is going to be remade as another VH1 plugger, that's far from a tragedy. But there's still something slightly melancholy about watching the icon of a whole subset of thousands of youth culture participate in making himself forgettable. This, Chris, from Ew Entertainment Weekly, his review on June 26, 2006. Give it a B.
Better.
When Dashboard Confessional toured with U2 last year, ew.
That's true. They also toured with REM.
It was great exposure and also a possible act of industrial espionage. The effects of such surveillance are abundant on their fourth studio CD, Dusk and Summer, where the band sheds that last remnants of their early acousticism for big, anthemic arena rock. Unlike Bono, thank God, Dashboard's auteur Chris Carrabba channels his epic urgency into girl craziness instead of God or global inequity, but the result is almost indistinguishable, set against decidedly edgier riffing. They've never sounded so unoriginal. Or frankly better. Carrabba would be insufferable back when the stripped down settings put too much focus on his "do me I'm sensitive" romanticism. He's still the king of Carpe Diem as come-ons. Several songs invoke summer's end as if everyone was at camp, facing some autumnal deadline for getting it on. But now, the band is powerful enough to match Carrabba's grandiosity and lust. Dusk's hot-blooded, hokey songs might get the better of you this summer, even if you'll hate yourself in the fall.
It's looking at a band like this and saying, you used to be cool, what happened? And not being able to just like look at the songs and how they stand on their own as they are. And I think with the benefit of hindsight, this record has really stood the test of time. I don't know. Props to Chris. Props to Dashboard. Props to like the band that he has been and the band that he has become and the places you have come to fear the most. Those are our thoughts, and those were the reviewers' thoughts. And you know, I think that we were right here. I think that we had the best thoughts.
I think we were all correct here, except for the critic reviews.
Before we can end this episode, we have to answer one all-important question. Should you check out Dashboard Confessional's Dusk and Summer at When We Were Young 2024? I'm going to say yeah, because Dashboard, you know, we've mentioned we've seen them a few times. The sound of their set and the way they perform is top tier. It's top notch. This is a band that is playing big festivals. It's a band that is very like popular. Their name carries a lot of weight to it. They put on a good show. They know when they're on the lineup, they got to put on a good show. Mm-hmm. I could see this being main stage. I could see this being like maybe not even middle of the day, maybe like later in the day, you know, more towards like when the big bands are going on,
You
like
mean at
afternoon.
dusk?
It could be on at dusk and fall, dusk and autumn in Vegas. So I think that like if you're on the main stage anyway, I think, you know, stick around that main stage, check it out. I think this record is worth listening to. I think this record is worth watching in full. I think that you're going to enjoy it. And I really think for that moment at the very end of it with Heaven Here, I really think that could be a cool moment. I think that could be one of those things that just like is the reason we all go to a show like this and the reason we all listen to music is for that kind of a moment. And so I think this could be a really great set.
I think that if you haven't seen Dashboard, you should definitely check it out and go see them at the fest. They're really fun live. And I think just hearing this album for some people may be like that cathartic, you know, you're in your 2000s era again, and this is your teen summer soundtrack. I think that'll be really great. I've seen them a lot. This isn't an album I'm going to be particularly rushing over for. I think I like it enough. I personally wouldn't want to go and see it though, especially there's going to be a lot of other bands I probably would prioritize over it. But anybody needs to go see Dashboard Confessional like at least once. They're really fun.
That's where we'll be. Watching it, maybe watching it, who knows? What will you be watching? You have to let us know. Let us know down in the comments, down below. By the subscribe button, by the like button. Let us know what you thought. Were we right? Were we wrong? We were right. Let us know your thoughts on this record. Let us know if you'll be watching this set at When We Were Young. We've extended episodes. We have longer episodes here on YouTube if you become a member. We also have it over on our Patreon at Emo Social Club over there. But until When We Were Young, until Dashboard Confessional, and until Dusk and Summer, we will see you there.